we will get started. So today we will have this webinar on the maps assessment of Sierra Leone, and we would like to, first of all, to inform that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be published on the maps website under the country assessment page. You can submit your questions via the Q&A function that you will find at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. And we will have time for that towards the end of this webinar that we intend to last 1 hour and 15 minutes. So for the opening remarks, we will start first, and I will invite Mr. Clément Aossi, Procurement Division Manager of the African Development Bank. The floor is yours, Clément.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, all participants to this webinar. On behalf of the African Development Bank, allow me to start by congratulating the government of Sierra Leone, and in particular the Sierra Leone Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, for the leadership they provided throughout the process. At the request of the government through the Ministry of Finance, the African Development Bank was pleased to join the World Bank to co-lead this assessment using MAPS methodology. The assessment was done on a timely manner. As you can see, it was done less than a year, which is quite an achievement. I would like to thank the assessment team for their effort and the hard work in ensuring that the assessment is successfully completed on time. The assessment involved various methods, including interviews with NPP officials, procuring entities, civil society organization, private sector. It also included the review of procurement file at national, local, and regional levels, including SOEs, state-owned enterprises. Today's event is an important opportunity for the team to share the results of the assessment. As you will note during the deliberation, the report identified both the strengths and weaknesses of the country procurement system. It also lays an evidence-based foundation for future procurement reforms. The African Development Bank would like to express its appreciation to all officials, experts, entities, and organizations, as well as to its co-partner on this exercise, the World Bank, for the collaboration and valuable input to this successful assessment. I would also like to recognize the African Development Bank leadership, particularly through our director, Mr. Frank Mvula, for the support and guidance that we receive throughout this exercise. Let me also conclude by acknowledging the MAP Secretariat for their support and for coordinating the quality process of this assessment. With this, I wish all very successful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Clément. I think this has been really a truly collaborative exercise, as I saw it right from the start of the meetings and throughout all the process between the country authorities of Sierra Leone, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank. We have a short difficulty connecting the persons that are waiting at the World Bank's office, but what we will do is we will get started with the assessors first, and then if we are able to sort this out, we will hear from Mr. Matthew Dingy, as well as the World Bank country manager in Sierra Leone. So with that, I would like to invite Sir Simeon Sahid Dasni, and Mr. Naushad Khan, who were the MAP's lead assessors for this exercise, to present us very briefly their findings, the main findings and recommendations for improving the public procurement system of Sierra Leone. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. May I have the next slide, please? So just a brief word on the background and the assessment approach and stuff like that. I want to say, as far as the assessment approach is concerned, we were fortunate to have, the opportunity to conduct many interviews with many stakeholders. That is in addition to all the file review and the normal steps that a MAPS assessment goes through. And for that, we have to acknowledge really the cooperation of the NPPA, and in particular, the Director General, Mr. Kone, and his staff, who were very instrumental in making sure that when we had our visits for the MAPS assessment, our schedules were full, and that contributed to our ability to finish the work in a timely fashion, as well as to come up with, a fairly detailed set of findings and recommendations. I also want to acknowledge the support all along from the World Bank, as well as the ADB, and also the crucial role played by the national consultant, Mr. Musa Randi Kabia, who was instrumental in just leading us around the government and through the system, and that was extremely crucial. Next slide, please. Now, as far as country and procurement context is concerned, I won't go into detail here, but just to point out that Sierra Leone, by the time we arrived to conduct the MAPS assessment, Sierra Leone already had an over 20-year tradition and history of procurement reform, which began in the 2003-2004 period with the enactment of the first actual Procurement Act. And then there was another act in 2016, and now today with the MAPS assessment, there will be a further iteration of the procurement law, much more updated than the past versions. Another element in the background that I think is crucial for Sierra Leone is that it also has let's say, some history of interest in transparency and open government initiatives. It has been for a number of years a member of the Open Government Partnership. And we found when we were conducting the assessment that this sort of approach on the part of the government to promote transparency will really feed into many of the recommendations that the MAPS assessment put forth, especially those related to data. I mentioned the key stakeholders that we were able to interview. That really was crucial. Just like procurement is a stakeholder-driven process, we all know that the MAPS assessment is also a stakeholder-driven process. The more stakeholders are involved, the better the outcomes. Next slide, please. As far as Pillar 1 is concerned, and to some extent, I think this applies also to the other pillars in the assessment. What we found is, given the past tradition that I just mentioned of experience in procurement reform, of substantial steps in procurement reform, what we found was that there's a system, there's a legal and an institutional framework for the public procurement system that resembles, in many ways, modern public procurement systems. So it has the foundations of a modern procurement system. What the challenge that has to be met in the coming years is actually implementation. And that's certainly not a unique problem to Sierra Leone. In my experience, which now is many years, as tough as it is to enact a good procurement law, it's actually the easy part in a procurement reform process. The tough part is, as many of us know, is to actually implement that, to have the capacity building and the resources to operate the procurement system and to conduct oversight effectively. So the key gaps, let me just mention some. Maybe the most prominent gap is that the legal framework has not been, let's say, updated or upgraded for e-procurement readiness. There are some passing or fragmentary references to use of websites and stuff like that, but in terms of actually ensuring that the legal framework is adaptable and adapted to e-procurement, that hasn't been done yet. So that's one of the big challenges and steps that has to be taken. Another gap that we found is the lack of a sustainable public procurement policy. There are some fragmentary references in the legal framework, but I'm sure that the next, as recommended in the MAPS assessment, the next legal framework will take the issue of sustainable public procurement on in a holistic fashion, throughout the procurement cycle. A chronic problem that appears in the legal framework is the setting of monetary thresholds and ceilings, in particular for the use of various public procurement systems, in particular the lower value public procurement systems like the request for quotations type of method, or some simplified method that is available for lower value procurement. That is problematic in particular because of the instability of monetary exchanges and formulas like that, which are, because of inflation and other factors, are chronically outdated. And that creates, a significant strain on the public procurement system in its operation. Another gap in the legal framework has to do with the PPP projects. Although there is a PPP Act, which is quite detailed, it needs some improvement. For example, in the area of unsolicited proposals, which are the bulk of PPPs in Sierra Leone, but they're not fully regulated. There is this Procurement Act. It does refer to the application of sound public procurement principles in awarding PPP contracts. The problem is that there's also an avenue for awarding PPP contracts and PPP projects outside of the PPP Act through something called the Office of Presidential Infrastructure Initiative. So that's something that the report highlighted. One other thing among many that I won't mention, but one that I have to mention, it has to do with bid evaluation. One of the main principles in the provisions on bid evaluation in the Procurement Act and in the supporting regulations establishes the principle of lowest evaluated bid, lowest evaluated responsive bid as the standard for contract award across the board. And the problem with that, of course, is that because it is essentially a lowest bid price approach to evaluation and ranking of bids, it substantially reduces the scope of application of rated criteria and value for money bid evaluation. Next slide, please. So in summary for Pillar 1, in light of the types of gaps that we identified in the report, we recommended in the report, of course, the modernization and digitalization of the legal framework for public procurement. And you could look at it through the following two perspectives. One is to ensure that the legal framework is ready, is EGP ready. Another way in which the legal framework can be updated would be through the provision of additional procurement methods to be put into the toolbox of the procuring entity. For example, although there is a passing reference to framework agreements in the regulations, there's no mention in the Act itself of framework agreements. So that will be an area to be developed in the next iteration of the legal framework. Another one is the one that I just mentioned. It has a gap in terms of the bid evaluation and contract award standard. So there will be the evolution of that standard to include something along the lines of most advantageous bid which will allow a greater use of value for money bid evaluation. Then there's the closing of the gap on the award of PPP contracts and the adoption of SPP policies, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Okay, now Pillar 2. Again, here there are strengths that the MAPS assessment noted. In particular, in the area of institutional arrangements, the establishment of the NPPA as a policy and oversight body for the public procurement system aligns Sierra Leone's public procurement system in a very important way with the administrative structures that are, the international standard for a public procurement system, namely a non-operational policy and oversight body that oversees the entire procurement system and guides its development, monitors compliance, and functionalities like that. Also on the institutional front, another strength is the wide establishment in the system of procurement units in terms of, a full-time standing procurement office in each procuring entity as a feature of the procurement system that has to be applied by all procuring entities. Another positive feature is the procurement planning. The earlier versions of the Procurement Act and the regulations established the practice of procurement planning. It did not, however, clearly at least require the publication of annual procurement plans, and that's something that the assessment report noted. So in terms of key gaps and challenges that remain, let me just outline 4 sectors. One is in the area of payment, budget, and planning. Okay, the complex of planning, budgeting, procurement, and payment is, I would say, is a challenge in practice. For example, there's a sufficiently widespread problem of procurement being conducted outside of the annual procurement plan, or procurement plans being processed without having been subjected to the required procurement processes. There are deviations from annual procurement plans, lack of formal modification and updating of procurement plans. So that's where it all begins in a way. And that's coupled with the difficulties that the country faces in the budget sphere and the unreliability of revenue flows. And that puts a lot of pressure on procuring entities that are trying to accomplish their jobs and provide their essential services. And it also ultimately puts pressure on suppliers and contractors who end up having to wait inordinately long times to be paid. The next area of gaps is institutional arrangements. Okay, I mentioned the solid accomplishment of the public procurement system in the establishment of the NPPA, the oversight body. However, there are some areas in which that needs attention still. One is the question of whether the NPPA should be a non-operational body, or should it also become involved, as it has due to some amendments to the Act in 2016. To what extent should it, if any, should it be involved in making operational decisions in the conduct of public procurement proceedings? So what has developed between the original version of the Act in 2004 and the amended version in 2016 is that some functions have been added to the NPPA, for reasons that are perfectly understandable, but nevertheless, are problematic from the standpoint of the regulatory nature of the NPPA, some functions have been added which actually are sort of operational, like prior review or non-objection to bidding documents, to contract awards. And that has thrust the NPPA into really wearing two hats. One is the regulator, or the policy and oversight body, but the other one, and that's a little bit of a tension with that regulatory role, and that's to be involved actually in making of decisions of an operational nature. Another institutional aspect that I'll mention that is a gap is the designation of a central purchasing body or entity for the purposes of common use supplies, in particular for establishment of centrally available framework agreements. In the data area, of course, the lack of an EGP system, is at the heart of various data collection and dissemination issues in the system that the assessment identified. The last gap is in the area of capacity building and professionalization. There have been some sporadic and fragmentary training initiatives taken, in particular upon the introduction of the procurement manual, but those have not been systematic. And obviously, there is a need for systematic, as in any other public procurement system, systematic and ongoing capacity building and continuing professionalization. Next slide, please. Okay, so the I don't need to take much time. The recommendations for Pillar 2 mirror the types of gaps that I just mentioned to illustrate the problems that the MAPS assessment identified in the public procurement system under Pillar 2. As far as planning, PFM and related issues are concerned, I would sum up the recommendations in maybe 3 or 4 words, and that is to avoid unready procurement and to avoid unfunded procurement. By unready procurement, I mean in particular project procurement that is initiated for projects that haven't gone through a sufficiently thorough PIM process and therefore are incomplete in some significant way when they haven't been fully scoped, for example, when they're already under procurement process. As far as institutional arrangements are concerned, the report recommends the restoration of the non-operational character of the NPPA and the designation of a central purchasing body, which would, have a significant role to play once the practice of centrally established framework agreements is established. Let me switch back just very briefly to the NPPA. We also recommended in the report that the NPPA be strengthened, in particular by having greater budgetary autonomy and also by enhancing the provisions in the legal framework concerning the senior leadership of the NPPA. That would include including some more detailed requirements for the qualifications of the Director General and the Deputy of the NPPA to ensure that the people leading the NPPA have the necessary background and qualifications in procurement, to do their job. As far as data is concerned, the report recommends aligning the data collection and dissemination system of the public procurement of Sierra Leone once the EGP system is implemented with the open contracting data system. And lastly, of course, there's the recommendations concerning professionalization of public procurement system. Thank you.
Thank you, Simeon. So I now invite Naushad.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to begin by thanking all the people that Simeon mentioned, especially Fodi and his team. They have been very cooperative. And also the WB World Bank staff like Innocent, Shiaka. So a lot of people that Simeon has already mentioned. I would not like to repeat that. And Simeon himself, because he's a great leader, by the way. Simeon, thank you for your leadership. And
Thank you.
maps
Thank
for
you
the,
for
yeah,
yours, Noshad. Thank you.
you're welcome. And maps, of course, for, and all the staff of the World Bank, AFDB for their reviews and comments. And finally, maps for their comments and suggestions which improve the quality of the report. So thank you very much. I would like to now begin with pillar 3. Simeon has already discussed strength and gaps of the legal framework and institutions. So these blocks already exist. There is a sound legal framework. There are institutions. The problem is with implementation. I mean, I'll cover some of these here. All of them cannot be covered in the time allocated. And I'll begin with the key ones. For example, needs analysis and market research for procurement planning are not practiced. PPA or Public Procurement Act does provide for market research, but market research and needs analysis are not done. This adversely impacts budgeting, procurement planning, and implementation. Because if you don't make correct estimates, you cannot select correct procurement methods, and then you create all kinds of issues. Application of standard bidding documents across procuring entities is not even. PEs or procuring entities modify SBDs without authorization, even the standard parts. And in most cases, specifications are general and input based. They are not performance based, they are input based. So, a lot of issues with these standard bidding documents. Then, consideration of sustainability criteria is absent. Indirect reference in the legal framework to local content and preferences for SMEs exist, but there's no mandate to incorporate environment, social, and economic aspects in procurement. Simeon has already discussed this. Then procurement methods are not properly selected and needs are split to avoid competition. This is a recurrent problem because of poor procurement planning and weak institutional capacity and oversight. Bid evaluation is overly price-driven. Simeon has already discussed this, that while lowest evaluated price or bid is to be selected, in most cases is the price which drives bid evaluation and which is a major deciding factor. And most advantageous bid and life cycle costing are not used at all. Next, please. Poorly supervised, rarely linked to output or performance, and there is no digital tracking system. So contact management practices are poor and need strengthening. Contractual payment delays are common, Simeon has discussed that, and this is a very serious issue. The payment delays are recurrent, leading to erosion of trust in the system and poor bidders' response. That is reflected in bidders not only quoting higher prices to cover their risks, but also deciding not to participate in government contracts. Digital systems necessary for efficient and transparent procurement are limited and not integrated. There is need of operationalizing EGP and integrating it with IFMIS and other procurement-related IT systems to make the system more efficient and transparent. But there is a lot of work to be done there. Civil society participation in procurement is limited, almost non-existent. Policy development, legislation, planning, bid evaluation, monitoring of contract execution. There is no role for civil society in these events. Capacity of the private sector and its organizations need strengthening. Private sector is based on many micro enterprises and SMEs with little capacity to bid or to participate in government tenders. Organizations don't exist. I mean, organization like Chamber of Commerce, we visited one. It didn't look like a Chamber of Commerce, which is very important to support private sector and also bidders, businesses who are interested in participating in bidding. Associations also, I did not find any. Maybe there are, but when I requested meetings, I really was not able to meet any of them. There may be some, but I was not able to meet. What I was taken to was some kind of trade association. So there was no civil or construction contractors association I could meet. So organization is weak. Competition for government contract is low, obviously because of private sector issues, because of support of the government to private sector, especially in local areas. Competition is low. And also contractual payments is a factor in low bidders' response. SMEs barriers exist because the procurement requirements are complex. Their access to procurement information is weak. They don't have financial capacity, and the procurement entities require high bid securities instead of using bid securing declarations. And these bidders, these SMEs, especially in local areas, don't have the means to fulfill those requirements. Next, please. So mandate needs analysis and strengthen procurement planning, improve SBDs, templates, and train staff in their use, clarify and enforce correct selection and use of procurement methods, strengthen contract management and payment systems, and make the EGP system operational to improve efficiency and transparency, and of course, integrate these systems with other systems like IFMIS, tax administration, etc., to improve the efficiency and transparency of procurement, and promote SME participation and market engagement by providing them support, by using less complex procurement requirements, particularly high-priced or high bid securities, use bid securing declarations. Next, please. Public consultation and stakeholder engagement are largely absent, or at best, these are ad hoc. The team did not notice any partnership between procurement and private sector or civil society. Furthermore, stakeholder training systems remain limited or ad hoc. Civil society role and participation in procurement is almost absent. They are not involved in procurement planning, nor in evaluation, nor in monitoring contract implementation. Transparency in procurement, including contract disclosure, need reinforcement. No legal requirement to disclose contract terms or contract implementation plan, and contract amendments are not published. Next, please. Existing procurement audit systems need better capacity and coordination. As Simeon mentioned, there are well-established legal and institutional mechanisms for auditing, internal and external, but these are understaffed and insufficiently coordinated. Inefficiencies and poor audit coverage is the result. Efficient tracking of audit recommendations and timely implementation require an integrated IT system, which I already discussed. All the systems, there are limited systems, but systems have to be integrated, like EGP with the IFMIS, tax, and also audit when these come on. Complaints and appeal systems and processes exist, but need strengthening and better access. Because these systems are underutilized, under-resourced, and inconsistently applied. Because these are centralized, and bidders from local areas have to make extra effort to access them. Also, what we learned from a survey that the bidders don't have much confidence in the complaint mechanisms because they believe it is not fair, not trustworthy. Anti-corruption mechanisms need improvement to better enforce ethics and integrity. No nationwide procurement risk framework or red flags tool to proactively identify and mitigate risks. Lack of complete data publication on nature of offenses and profile of offenders. And while ethics standards exist, these are not consistently applied. In conclusion, I would like to say that there are four items which have repeatedly issues which have come up repeatedly in the assessment. Market research and analysis, payment delays. In almost every meeting, they complain about payment delays. And the involvement of the stakeholders, especially civil society in procurement. Finally, the training or capacity building, whatever you call it, is fragmented. The belief that PPA alone can deliver all these trainings to stakeholders, which are government servants, civil society, auditors, anti-corruption stuff. PPA cannot do that. It has to be institutionalized as is being done by many, many countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Naushad. I think it is always difficult to summarize in such a short time the good work that you have done, but I think it is very clear which are the main findings and the recommendations that you have included in this report. So we will give it a try now. I understand that we have reestablished the connection with the World Bank VC room. So if possible, I'd like to give the floor now to Abdu Muwonge, Country Manager, World Bank in Sierra Leone. If you can unmute the room, please. Alan, if you're there, if you could unmute the VC room, the World Bank.
Unmute from here.
Thank
You have to unmute.
Yes, that's perfect. We can hear you.
Okay, excellent. No, thank you. All along we've been listening in, so we have actually been active in the meeting room, but with the caveat that I joined late, so my apologies. Do we have Lina, Innocent, and the team?
Innocent and Nazanin are connected. Lina and Albert are.
Okay, but we have Nazanin.
Yes, Nazanin.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Lina is also connected.
Okay, no, thank you. So thank you so much, colleagues, for this excellent presentation. My remarks will be very few, and I think what is more important is to, first of all, congratulate you collectively. You know, the Director General for the NPA, colleagues on the government side who are spearheading this very important piece of work, jointly with the African Development Bank. This is a very, very important piece of work for reasons that you know very well, because you have been the one pushing it through. So my remarks will be really to emphasize why we are doing maps and what I think it is going to help bring about in this country. We know the volume of transactions that happen in terms of procurement is literally everything in this country. When we talk about the national budget, it's just a little over $1 billion. Just a little over $1 billion of national budget every year. A bigger chunk of that has to go through procurement systems, right? And that is just when you look at the national government budget. When you bring it up to the World Bank portfolio, our current size of the portfolio is just over $1 billion. Of course, that is over years. But if we talk about the annualized disbursement, we think about every year in the range of $150 to $200 million that will go as part of World Bank procurement procedures. Then you think about what African Development Bank is doing. You think about what Islamic Development Bank is doing. You think about what EU is doing, Badi and others. So the scale of work that goes through procurement is a lot, okay? And that gives us the challenge of how do we ensure that there is effectiveness, there is a high quality in the procurement processes, so that you get the qualities of value for money, the economy, and so on. So we know that Sierra Leone has made significant progress on procurement laws, okay? Whether we're talking about the National Public Procurement Act of 2016, the regulations that were supported in 2020, the establishment of NPPA as a fully-fledged entity responsible for handling regulations on procurement. A lot has been done in terms of the policy and the regulatory framework. So then the question will be is that what is it that is really holding the efficiency in the procurement process to move forward? I think the presentation from my colleague before is very clear. We need to make the process more inclusive, more transparent, and at the heart of everything, accountability, right? So we believe that joining our forces to do maps is really going to be a step to improve and contribute to these objectives, how we become more inclusive, transparent, and accountable to the work we do by the end of the day, whether it is the national entities or the county, or sorry, the local councils. That's what we want to do. And I think on the World Bank side, we've been very deliberate on the approach. The maps itself, the methodology for assessing procurement systems, is an analytical tool that we are jointly handling, working with African Development Bank. But the idea of the analytical tool is to feed into your ongoing policy, regulations, and institutional frameworks. But in doing the maps, we are very deliberate to make sure that this time around, we don't want to say, okay, things are beginning and then they fall between the cracks. We are deliberate in the way we are handling this. Maps is a requirement as part of the budget support operations. I think if I'm not mistaken, Innocent, this is prior action what? Is it prior action 3 on getting the amendment to the Procurement Act?
Yeah, that is prior action number 3.
2. Yes. I have this by heart. I crammed them. So we are deliberate in making sure that the analytical work feeds into a reform that is supported through the budget support. And it is something we would like to see through, that reform gets implemented, the law gets passed with the support of Parliament, His Excellency the President, and we see this through implementation. But at the same time, we're not only linking the analytical tool, which is the maps and the DPO reform of the procurement law, we're also saying that when you look at the ongoing accountable governance and service delivery project, one of the investment interventions we are supporting is e-procurement. And some of you may know, the procurement of e-procurement itself was a pain. It took us, Nazanin, Selena, they know, over 2 years for us to really manage getting the procurement of the e-procurement system done. Now, the good news is that it is under implementation. But again, we are not stopping there. We would like to make sure it is linked to the engagement moving forward. So whereas the accountable governance service delivery project supported the e-procurement intervention, operationalizing it has to be part of the next project, which is what we are calling the Salone PFM, P4R. Now, I'm glad he's even mentioned the name P4R before I said it. This is program for results, meaning that you only get what we call the incentive after the result becomes material. So after we see the result, then the incentive will come. And again, we are being deliberate to make sure that this time around, things don't fall between the cracks, whereby this is done separately from this, and there is no connection between the two. So as you see, we are becoming smarter. We are becoming smarter, learning from failure. Yes, I have to be open. Learning from failure, we are becoming smarter that you cannot do maps in isolation from the policy reform in the budget support, and you cannot do the intervention and accountable governance in isolation. You have to tie to the reform here. And if you want it to stick for the long term, any future coming programs must look into the same direction of putting the incentive, hence the P4R. So you see now we are connecting the dots in every region. I'm mentioning this for a reason because procurement is our biggest bottleneck in Sierra Leone. We are sitting on potential ineligible expenditures in millions of dollars.
Slow disbursement.
No, forget about slow disbursement. We are sitting on real challenges of integrity. We've had cases of misprocurement, and we've had a difficult conversation with government to invoke refund of ineligible expenditures. That has been my most difficult discussion, where it is the most difficult discussion I've had with the Minister of Finance, that, sir, this amount of money has to be refunded. And to get the government of Sierra Leone to refund the World Bank did not happen overnight, but it took us a cycle of over 12 months, simply because it's a very difficult process. And from what I gather, even the Minister of Finance, this was difficult for him. He has to get the approval of the president. And then the president also, I hear, makes it very clear that we are going to refund this money, but whoever is involved in this, they have to answer. So you can imagine the extent through which we have to go through multiple difficult pain to reach where we are. In the education project, we are on the verge of another wave of massive potential misprocurement, which will imply, again, potential consequences for refund and very difficult conversations. So we have to find a way of making sure the portfolio is really ring-fenced from this major risk. It is the single most major risk for the World Bank portfolio, the DG, procurement, but at the same time, even for the other development partners, it could be, I don't know. I know for the World Bank's portfolio, I can speak to that, but maybe even the others. So we are being very deliberate to say that if we focus on it, seeing maps operationalized, let us be deliberate on the action points we can take forward. For example, how do we make the process more inclusive? I know you want to cut me off. In 1 minute, I'll be finished. Then I'll run away. I'm not going to stay.
No, you should stay.
But 2 points. No, 2 points. Or how do you make the process inclusive? Bring in civil society, CSOs, bring in anti-corruption, not at the end, but early, will require that there is a mechanism, maybe quarterly or every 6 months, where there is information sharing and making sure that some of the information is truly available on the website in real time to allow for CSOs to see it. That's the only way. If it is transparent, open it. If it is not transparent, then it remains closed. Then you always have questions to answer from civil society and so on. So I think that's one clear thing that we really need to see that we move forward. And then my final point is that we are currently working on the country partnership strategy for Sierra Leone. But one of the key innovations that is really going to come up is that in sectors where we see more procurement difficulty, we will stay away from those sectors. Oh no, don't say because there has to be a pain before you get the gain. You see the point? If it is really not that way, then people should do things differently. So it is going to be different if there are behavioral challenges in a particular sector. You can come up with an example of any sector. I don't want to name any, but suppose in sector XYZ, we see a pattern of chronic challenges of misprocurement, then we engage with the government and say, maybe for that particular sector, others can deal with it, or you deal with it, and then for us, we will be able to focus on the other sectors. How about that conversation? It's not going to be easy.
Maybe we put PFR in that sector.
So I'll stop there. Thank you so much. But for me, I'm very excited about this. And over to you. I'm sorry I have to leave for another meeting.
Thank you for these remarks. I think you framed it very well around not only what has been done, but also how this can be useful for the future. And I just want to give the floor quickly to Mr. Matthew Dingy, Financial Secretary, Ministry of Finance of Sierra Leone. If you are there and can speak,
Then
please
I'm
feel
not
free
going
to.
to go. I'm not going to leave. Since finance secretary is here, I cannot leave. I have to stay.
No, Abdul, I will also try
Huh?
to be brief. Abdul, thank you very much. I will also try to be brief so we don't keep you too long, since you have to catch up on other meetings. But let me thank the team as well, like you already did, Abdul, the team from the bank and the FDB that have worked assiduously to help us get these maps reports ready. I've just been going through the reports shared with me this morning by the CEO and PPA, and it's really, really very exhaustive in terms of coverage of all issues that affects procurement in Sierra Leone. It's really documents that will support us to revise the act, like you've mentioned, and that will address all the loopholes, the challenges we are experiencing at present with public procurement. You mentioned directly about $1 billion of the annual budget, over 70% of that goes through procurement. If you exclude wage bill and debt service, the rest of it goes through procurement. And with the challenges we are having in getting procurement done open, competitive, transparently, so that we don't lose funds, valuable funds which the government needs to do investments in other critical sectors, it is always important that we have a law that really caters well for all the procedures and policies that should guide procurement implementation. So one critical area I just want to emphasize on, which the first presenter highlighted, are the loopholes identified from between the planning process for procurement and the budget approval and execution process. There's a gap in terms of how do you ensure that the procurement plans are aligned to the approved budget, and the approved budget is what guides implementation of the procurement plan. I think you mentioned that clearly, that there are loopholes there in terms of when procurement is approved and whether the procurements have been captured, the plan has been fully funded and costed and captured in the budget, and whether the implementation of the procurement plan is aligned with budget execution. So I believe that's really going to guide in the revision of the revised act, how we're going to strengthen the laws to ensure that procurement plans are aligned with approved budgets, and approved budgets speak to implementation of the approved procurement plans when it comes to execution of the budget. That is really very critical, and we look forward to seeing how that will help us improve in terms of the reform of the procurement process going forward. Abdi also mentioned about the ineligible expenditures on donor-funded projects as well, and which really has been a burden and continue to be a burden on governments, that we have to refund monies to the bank, and not only for the World Bank, even other partners. We've had experience with some of the Arab banks or AFDB for similar reasons. Their procurement was not done according to the guidelines or laws which should be followed. So it's not a practice we want to continue. It's something which is really very painful, like you really mentioned it, because it's an unplanned expenditure. We don't have any provision to take resources out of the budget which was not planned for and refund to partners just because ineligible expenditures have been incurred and the wrong procurement processes were applied in utilizing those funds. So we really look forward to sanitizing that process through these maps and through the revised Procurement Act that will ensure that there are some provisions that guide implementing MDAs on how they should go about procurement activities without violation of donor guidelines or principles as far as procurement is concerned. As you also aware, we are the process of doing the e-procurements. The e-procurements, we are almost coming to the end in terms of its first phase implementation, starting with registration of businesses through the e-platform, and then later we hope to move to open tender, to publish tenders openly, competitively through that platform. So I think it's the right time again to see how the e-procurement process, the stages which we're going to adopt are aligned to the law, to the Procurement Act, so that we ensure that there is consistency between what is being done on the e-procurement platform and what the requirements are in the law, in the PFM law the procurement law that we're going to develop. Envisaging this like just what's happening in the current World Bank STEP system that you have for procurement, wherein all documentations relating to procurement decisions, evaluations, and all of that will be uploaded through the system, and then they are transparently will see how those evaluations are done, selection of most responsive bid, and awarding of contracts done openly, and that will really help to give confidence and assurance, or even improve credibility of third-party businesses that do, private companies or that do business with government, to have confidence in the procurement system that indeed it's open, it's competitive, and it is transparent. So we have to make sure that the law which we're going to develop will, this e-procurement platform will really ride on the law, so that there are no inconsistencies when it comes to implementation. I think lastly, just to buttress again up those points, of course, the development of the law is one of our DPO triggers, which we should complete. So now that the maps has been finally completed and we are discussing its recommendations here today, we are supporting the NPPA with resources and support or guide for them to move ahead with the drafting of the new procurement law, riding on the recommendations of the maps. So we hope that NPPA will seize this opportunity to move as quickly as possible, so that we're able to get the draft of the new Procurement Act, share with partners, let us be as open as possible and transparent, share the drafts that we have, and invite feedback and go into a wider consultation with all stakeholders. So by the time we have the final draft that will be taken to Parliament, we believe all of these recommendations that are in these maps that have to do with improvements on procurement in Sierra Leone will have been fully captured and addressed in the new procurement law, and at the same time will meet the requirements of the bank for our DPO operation. So I once again want to thank everyone that has really worked very, very hard on this, from the inception meetings that we had in my office here, across with all other stakeholders to discuss. They were grinding discussions. But I'm happy the methodology we actually adopted, which was to bring out the facts as things are, what's really prevailing, what are the practices we are indulging in that are leading us to having problems with procurement in Sierra Leone. So I'm happy all of those facts came out clearly and well documented in the maps, and we can see from the recommendations now how we need to address some of them. So thanks to the team, we really appreciate, on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, I will definitely convey your good works that you've done on these maps to the minister, and so on his behalf, and of course the rest of the leadership of the Ministry of Finance, staff and colleagues, to thank everyone that has really worked assiduously. Thank the bank, we thank the FDB and the team from NPP as well, CEO and his team. We really thank you very much. The work only starts now. Now you have a very good document as an authority to really improve your work and leave your mark on the procurement landscape for Sierra Leone, that indeed you're able to identify all of these weaknesses in our procurement systems and well documented in this map, and clear-cut recommendations on how they should be addressed going forward, and develop a new law that writes on all of these recommendations and make it more foolproof, so that procurement is done more open and transparently, and Sierra Leone will definitely be on the map when it comes to ratings on PFM as far as procurement is concerned. So thanks. The job starts now, and I'm sure you and your team, you are well placed, and count on our support at Ministry of Finance to give you all the resources you need so that we'll make sure that we get to the bottom line of getting a new law and new regulations that guide procurement in Sierra Leone. Thanks very much once more, and I pass it over to you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DG. It's very encouraging to see the high-level support that this work has received, and also going forward, I think I would like now to give the floor to Mr. Fodie Kone, CEO of the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, to better detail and let us know how you are using the assessment in Sierra Leone and what are your plans going forward. The floor is yours. And if Alan, if you could unmute the room, the World Bank VC room, please. As you just did before.
Yeah, we wait.
Thank you.
Alan, make it. I understand.
We can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Nicholas and team, the rest of the leadership of the banks, the two banks, and the assessors, we want to thank you for organizing this launch. We are very much grateful for this opportunity to be part of this MAPS success story. I must say that based on the statement made by the World Bank country manager and the financial secretary, all that we need to know is that all parties has to strengthen public procurement for better results, both in the national space and in the donor space. And that takes us into a timely delivery of the maps and the recommendations. So we'll go through our response to the recommendations of the various recommendations from the 4 pillars of the maps, and I will hand you over to the capacity building director for the presentation for the way forward of the National Public Procurement Authority. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Sid, and thank you, colleagues. So, based off on all what I've discussed by the two assessors, and based on the action points in the MAPS report, we've put this together as a way forward in the implementation of the findings and the action points. First, we know we have a strong legal foundation, but implementation still remains a challenge, as discussed by Noshat and even Simeon. So to get this done, we first need to know where we want to go by using this report to develop this new law and inputting things that will help solve the problems we are facing. So the first is the reform destination. We want the procurement to support fiscal discipline by ensuring procurement plans and budget executions go hand in hand. Also change implementation approach, convert these recommendations to tangible things that we want to do. That's why after this launch, I'm sure the AFDB and the World Bank will receive concept notes from us for support and for future projects that will be developed on PFM. Please put us in mind to see how you support us, because capacity building remains a challenge and professionalization is the way forward if we want to get out of all these challenges that I've identified. So the success factors to get this done, we have the political leadership, we have the strong will of the leaders, both at the NPP and the Ministry of Finance, to push this forward. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So the reform architecture will look at the following: legal and regulatory modernization. We are changing the law and we have significant input that we are making. Starting with evaluation methodology, introducing sustainability practices, how we open up the market. So all this will demand feature training for practitioners and even the NPP. Also move with with digital procurement and open data. We are digitizing the process and the function, which will make the process more transparent, open, and accessible to all stakeholders that have interest in the procurement spectrum. Also, professionalization and market development. This one has been lacking since the word go. Procurement now has been practiced in Sierra Leone for like 2 decades, and we are yet to even get a body to regulate practitioners' practice or conduct outside the MPP. So with this new law, we are professionalizing, as in all other jurisdictions, including the EU. We are making this profession a professional career that should have laws and should guide people in the way they practice. So professionalization is key, as stated in the report and the action points, and we are following this through to ensure this one is being done. Also, strengthening planning and PFM integration. Everybody has explained how budget constraints, payment structures, procurement plan has been a challenge. So we are instituting this one to ensure practitioners and entities follow their procurement plan to the letter. Also, contract delivery and payment discipline. We are introducing new policies into the law, and where possible, we'll change most of the way we do business, and which will give government the fiscal space to plan for procurement activity. Because if you don't have money, it's necessary that you don't start procurement. Also, increase integrity, audits, and appeals. We'll be working with all the transparency and accountability sister organizations to see that this space is well regulated and people have comfort in what we are doing. Next slide. So the first initiative is to get the legal and regulatory framework done. So once the act is being passed, we'll develop the regulation and the manual, which will form the basis for all what we are doing. So we'll be needing the support of the ministry, the bank, and AFDB to see this through, because this is the first point. If we're able to get the law passed in Parliament, I'm sure we'll get something that we'll be able to work with. So once we have this new law with all these fine things, with all the gaps and how we hope to address them is being listed and approved by Parliament, then we have something that will help navigate the procurement landscape. Next slide. Stronger procurement planning and PFM linkage. This has been a bottleneck, not only for NPPA, but for MDAs and even the Ministry of Finance. So with the help of the EGP, now it becomes mandatory. First, you plan when you have the budget. If you don't have the budget, you are not able to do procurement. But we'll still encourage Ministry of Finance to help with budgetary ministries, because for ministries that go through Ministry of Finance and IFMIS, if you don't have the budget available, you'll not be able to do procurement. With other MDAs, they have their own budget, so it will be easy, but we'll try to ensure we link the planning process to other PFM outcomes. So once procurement plans are realistic, procurement activities become realistic, because those are some of the reasons why you see different prices for ministries, departments, and agencies, and for other projects that are funded by donors. So once this is strengthening and we will live by this one, we are sure the fiscal space will be well managed, and this will help governments to save money and save costs and get better value. Next slide. Next slide, please. AGP and open contracting. AGP is the way forward. With the AGP coming and its full operationalization, all these other things about transparency, accountability will be enhanced and will be achieved. Once procurement processes are done through the system, collecting data for open contracting, and providing procurement information that will be needed by donors and other stakeholders will be enhanced. Because with this system, once you process transactions through them, the perennial issue about audit contract document being misplaced or get lost will be thing of the past. Because with this system, everything will be digitized and everybody will have access to information. Next slide. Contract management and payment discipline. This another action point we would like to follow. One of the reasons why people are discussing the issue about contract implementation, payment terms, contract pricing has to do with this one. Most times when contracts are signed, government does not have the money to even give the advance payment. And from the time contracts are signed and the time they receive advance to initiate procurement actions, it takes most times over 90 days to 180 days. So once we're able to plan procurement well and ensure the budget is available, contract management and efficient administration will be something that the NPPA will institute in line with ministries, departments, and agencies. Because once you sign contracts and these documents are available within the EGP system, then it gives the NPPA the authority and time for us to able to monitor and ensure that those contracts signed, people live by them, and also they are able to achieve value for money by its implementation. Next slide. Professionalization and capacity development. For us to achieve all what is stated in this report, this one is key. We are soliciting support from the World Bank and the AFDB and even the Ministry of Finance to ensure that we professionalize the procurement function, because we are doing major shifts. One, we are moving to digital procurement, and we are still here to do hands-on training for practitioners. We are introducing a new evaluation methodology. We are bringing sustainability practices into the fold. We are going to change tender documents or bidding document. So all these need proper capacity building, and also how we upskill our practitioners, because once we form the Institute to manage practitioners, we will need the support of donors to ensure this institute and this profession keeps moving by providing CBDs to all those that are involved into this space. And also, we'll not left our suppliers and contractors behind, because if you have a ready workforce of suppliers and contractors, which you partner with them to deliver government projects, we'll be able to achieve what we call value for money. Next slide. Inclusive market and sustainable procurement. We've learned a lot from what the donors are doing, World Bank and African Bank, how they are using their approach to go to market, and how they've implemented sustainability approaches into their procurement work. Once the act is passed, we'll also learn from that, and we'll develop programs that will ensure practitioners, procurement entities are able to do this. There are times for some big procurements, we need early market engagement to know exactly how markets are behaving, how markets are responding. We need to do market research. We need to include sustainability clauses into tender documents. But you can't do this once if you don't have the required training, the required support, and the required tools to do them. So after passing the law, which is the first step, developing the regulations, the manual, and standard bidding documents, all these approaches now will form part of what we do as an authority. Next slide. Integrity, audit appeals, and oversight coordination. As I said earlier, we'll use this to work with CSOs, anti-corruption, audit service, and all other transparency and accountability institutions that have interest in procurement, and even the media landscape, because we need to propagate what we are doing, and we need to open the market that more people know exactly what is happening in the public procurement space. Next slide. So in implementing this one, we've sequenced the action plan from 0 to 3 years plus. So as a start, we'll go back as an entity after getting the law passed, put together concept notes that will address each of these activities identified. And in the medium-term priorities, we'll develop concept note that targets each of these action points. For example, if we want to do training on the use of evaluation methodology, we'll do something different that will send to either of these banks that are ready to support us, not only giving us financial commitment, but even with expertise. And we also do training of trainers. We do various types of market engagements and training so that we're able to achieve the action plan activities identified. I want to thank the assessors for the work done, and want to also thank the bank, the World Bank and the African Bank, for this support, and want to keep this relationship going and see what we can get out of this one and help develop the procurement function in Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this concise presentation. I really appreciate how you clustered into those short, medium, and long-term actions, and how you've already started with several of those. So I think I'm being mindful of time, and unfortunately we won't be able to have time for questions. I know that some of you had questions, but I think my colleagues have provided some answers to that, and I really invite you to go to the report, which is very, very informative on several points that, because of time, we were not able to have here today. But I would invite very briefly, if you can be very brief, Innocent, on what is from the World Bank perspective, how you are contributing to the way forward in Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much, Nicholas, and good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, depending on where you are. I think my life has been simplified by the country manager, because he's a procurement guru, and he has almost gone through my presentation, though I did not share it with him. So what I wanted to present, what the bank is doing to make this happen, to make the recommendations of the MAPS assessment happen with the government. The first one, as Abdul said, we are funding the EGP under Accountable Governance project, and the e-procurement supply and installation is underway. Server-side infrastructure has been completed. User acceptance testing has been completed for 6 modules. I know we are in a faster track. I think by now NPPA will tell me that 6 modules have been passed. But by the time I was presenting the presentation, it was at this level. Then we are trying to integrate different systems with the EGP system, including the FMS and other government systems, as well as some private sector systems like banks. On the legal and regulatory reform support, we have engaged a consultant to help the government review and revise the Public Procurement Act and regulations. And the draft act is under review by the government through their internal processes. On policy-based support, which we call DPO, we have a 3-year DPO that includes prior actions on the revision of the Public Procurement Act, as well as operationalization of e-procurement system. However, this is not enough because it may be short term. We also have a pipeline project that is under design, which we are trying to include a disbursement linked indicator on to what extent the EGP will be used. And after the government demonstrating the use of EGP to a certain percentage or a certain level, then they will be incentivized for that. And this will be monitoring the use of EGP for a period of 5 years. So we are also thinking about professionalization, but we have not started working with it, with the government on it. So we are thinking about professionalization of procurement cadre. However, this one is still in the thinking. We are yet to come to a final decision. So I think that is my end of slide. I had prepared only one slide for presentation, and thank you very much. Over.
Thank you, Innocent. Very, very much appreciate your conciseness as well, and also reassuring to see how this is taking shape. We would really encourage all the members of the teams here and also the banks and the country authorities to let us know over the coming months how this advances, because I think this is a very good example of how a country engages from the beginning, wants to use a diagnosis tool like MAPS, and then uses that to inform the design of the reforms and actually in an actual way that makes it concrete. So as said, I think we will not have time for the questions, but I would like to invite to close this webinar Clément Aossi from the African Development Bank and Nazanin Ismail Ali from the World Bank. So,
no, Nicholas, I think I'll let Nazanin go first.
Thank you.
Just in case I have anything to add. Nazanin.
Well, thank you, Clement. I think in my closing remark, I'll try to be summarized because already many things had been said. So I have to start really by extending our gratitude. So on behalf of the procurement team of the World Bank, Innocent, Lina, and Albert, really, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to all the partners who made this MAPS assessment a success. And you saw it from the presentations of NPPA, and already those findings and recommendation has been transferred into tangible actions. So a special thanks to NPPA for their leadership, to African Development Bank for the excellent collaboration. It was really an easy and smooth journey together with the African Development Bank. MAP Secretariat for the invaluable collaboration. Our esteemed and colleagues, lead assessor Naushad and Simeon. And indeed, all the stakeholders. I mean, without the contribution of the stakeholders, their time, their knowledge, their expertise, the data that they have provided to this critical undertaking to complete the MAPS. We are grateful again for the Ministry of Finance. You heard it from the FS of the country, how much they are interested in really enhancing the public procurement system in Sierra Leone. And to our country management unit, you heard Abdou. He became now a guru in procurement. And on many instances, I ask if he is interested to change his career to procurement, Abdou, because he became now the expert in procurement. And you saw it from the presentations and from the interventions that the findings of this assessment had really cleared a clear roadmap, had created a clear roadmap for the reform, and to give the solid foundation that NPPA can take forward the procurement and to modernize the procurement system in Sierra Leone. I think you heard it again. I'm pleased to report that the World Bank, will continue really to support the government of Sierra Leone and NPPA, and we are actively supporting in providing our technical assistance in amending and modernizing the public procurement legal framework, which will be the base and create a more efficient and transparent framework for the public expenditure. In my view, the major leap for the bank's commitment to the government side is really the EGP. The EGP, and I think from the last progress report, it will go live in August. So this EGP system, it will enhance transparency. It will create areas for fiscal space that is much needed in Sierra Leone, and it will increase competition and give more opportunities to SME, as has been proven in many other EGPs in other countries. We are deeply, of course, interested, and we will be investing in the professionalization of the procurement workforce, and also in building the private sector. And we will be also doing a business outreach soon in Sierra Leone. Just to really to build the capacity of both the public sector as well as the private sector. These reforms, inspired by the MAP's findings, are foundational for Sierra Leone strengthening your country public finance management to ensure value for money, to ensure economy, but mostly to ensure sustainable development. We are confident that with the partnership and with the continued collaboration with all the partners, that we will be able to build an accountable and a sound system in Sierra Leone. And with that, I will hand over to you, Nikolai. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you very much, Nazanin. Clement, would you like to add anything else?
No, just to thank everyone for the job well done, and also to reiterate African development commitment to support the implementation of the result achieved. We are readily available just in case we are to engage with NPP and the government on how best we can assist to ensure that these recommendations are taken on board and implemented for the good of the national procurement system in Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Thank you, Clement. And with this, we come to a close. So thank you to all the speakers, the authorities, the banks here present, but also to you, to our audience. So just remember that we have our assessments, including the Sierra Leone and others. You may find them on the MAPS website, the mapsinitiative.org, and also follow us on LinkedIn for future events and future reports. So with that, thank you so much. We will publish this recording, and we hope to see you in a future occasion. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks and goodbye. Thanks.